This is why I'm a cat person. Thoughts on the new Fall Out Boy record or Fall Out Boy in general? I guess I didn't really get around to reviewing American Beauty, American Psycho, just because I was just kind of meh on it in general and everyone else seemed to cover it. But I was just kind of indifferent on that album, honestly. There are great songs on it, don't get me wrong, like the title track, A New Uma Thurman, and Novocaine. But the rest of it, like, to me, and I feel like a lot of people consider it better than Save Rock and Roll, but I really liked Save Rock and Roll, and most of American Beauty, American Psycho just kind of felt like Save Rock and Roll leftovers to me. Like, it felt really overproduced and uninspired for about half of the album, and I just don't really think it worked all the way through. If you guys are curious about my score, I'd probably give it like a 6.5. I think it's decent, but nowhere near their best. And as for thoughts on them in general, this is another unpopular opinion, but honestly, I think that in terms of like their initial run, I think Fully Ado is their best album, not by far necessarily, since I do think that Running the Cork Tree and Infinity on High are very good albums, but I honestly think Fully Ado is when they are at their like artistic best, while still like staying more rock bound, I suppose, for lack of a better term. And yeah, I just think it's their most consistently enjoyable album with the least amount of filler tracks. And I do think Takes to Your Grave is a bit overrated, even though I do have some nostalgia for that Reinventing the Wheels Run Myself Over song just because of that being part of the Burnout 3 soundtrack. How disappointed are you in the lack of Rule 34 based on you? Come on, guys, I traveled all the way across the country to visit John. The least you could do is make a couple DeviantArt albums. You mentioned in your Fall Out Boy concert review about YouTuber-rap, like Hoodie Allen and Lil Dicky, and I don't think you ever truly explained this shit. Care to enlighten me? Well, I'm not really sure if I honestly am the best person. Like, I'm not sure if I'm the most qualified to, like, put this all in the same box to pigeonhole it. But to me, YouTuber-rap, like the artists I mentioned in that video, to me, it's basically like a watered-down version of hip-hop that has a lot more novelty to it and is meant to appeal to more of the white suburban teen girl demographic. I felt like when I was listening to songs by, say, Hoodie Allen or something, there are lines in some of his songs I could picture Wiz Khalifa saying on that same show. And I feel like the fact that they're YouTubers and have these quirky little videos and stuff and make these nerdy references and stuff and have like poppier hooks and stuff, they kind of excuse that just because of that and the fact that they're a YouTuber. And I feel like it kind of causes this double standard. There's more emphasis on rapping over making hip-hop. And again, it just kind of feels watered down to me. Like, there's more of a focus on, like, oh, look, I can rap really fast, over I can actually make quality, substantial material. I don't know. I'm not really sure how to elaborate on it anymore. Maybe I can in the next Mad Sounds episode. I don't know. But that's just my feelings on the subject, honestly. For all I know, I could have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's just my perspective on it. What are some of the more negative parts of being largely associated with ARTV and Spectrum Pulse? Honestly, not much. I mean, aside from the fact that I have considerably less subscribers than both of them, they have, not only are they two of my favorite reviewers on this site, but I think they've helped me out a good amount, not only from me being a pretty good friend of John, but also Mark, other Mark, his reviewing style kind of influencing me to go a bit more deep and insightful into my videos. Speaking of Spectrum Pulse, why did you steal his name? I don't know, maybe you should ask him why he stole it from Cover Killer. What's the first album you ever bought? what? I don't really have a direct answer for this, but I do have multiple answers for questions that are similar to this. Namely, that the first 3 albums I ever owned, thanks to my mom, were Def Leppard's Hysteria, Lenny Kravitz's Baptism, and the first Van Halen album. So yeah, I was raised right. Also, the first vinyl album I ever bought with my own money was The Smithereens, Especially for You, a ridiculously underrated pop rock record. I think I mentioned them in the past before. And the first new album I ever bought on vinyl was The Strokes' Angles. What's your decision-making process like for purchasing music? I'm not really partial to any one format. Sometimes I download stuff off the internet, sometimes I buy vinyl, sometimes I get CDs. Really, I kind of set up a rule of quote-unquote ethics for myself. Like, if it's a super unknown band, then I'm definitely going to buy it in one way or another, just because I feel like I have to support them. Otherwise, if a band, say, uploads the whole album to stream on their YouTube channel, then I don't really have a problem in putting it in a YouTube MP3 converter, honestly, especially if it's like a band that's already selling hundreds of thousands of copies of their albums. Just because, you know, if they're putting it up on the YouTube channel, they're okay with a couple people not paying for it, and with a budget like mine, you know, broke college kid, you do have to cut some corners here and there, but I do set up standards for myself. Like, if an artist doesn't stream their whole album on a site like YouTube or something, I usually feel more compelled to buy it as opposed to, like, finding torrents and stuff like that, because then I just feel kind of dirty, you know? Is there any records that you still have in your collection that you feel regretful or just dissatisfied buying? Judge me! It was 2008, I was 12, shut up. What are your thoughts on the word hipster? It's overused for sure. I mean, there are some legitimate uses for it, obviously, like if you automatically hate anything that's mainstream, or you hold your opinions above others just because you listen to more underground stuff. But when people say that stuff like hipster music, when they dismiss something as hipster music, I don't consider any of their other opinions legitimate, because, I mean, after saying something that close-minded, how can I trust you about anything, you know? Do you collect vinyl? You haven't seen the end slate of any of my videos, haven't you? How do you feel about people who use ghostwriters for their music, as well as outside writers in general? While I don't necessarily automatically hate anything that involves an outside writer, you know, as long as it's co-writing and stuff like that, I just personally feel a bit less connection when I'm listening to something from a singer that didn't write what they're saying, you know? I mean, sure, there are some situations like Fall Out Boy, like I mentioned earlier, where, like, another member of the band might write the lyrics, but, you know, it's still coming from that one entity. And honestly, like, I feel like some of the reason why I don't really like some of, like, is that, like, in the case of people that just, like, have writers behind the scenes coming up with everything with the person is just kind of a figurehead, I just have trouble connecting with that kind of stuff, because even if it's, like, super well written, I don't know, there's just a certain divide there that keeps me from really getting into it, you know? I mean, there are definitely some great covers, but I still acknowledge them as covers. Even though I have huge amounts of respect for, like, people that just write songs for other people, because that definitely takes, like, whole other skills than just being a musician who writes their own stuff. You know, you gotta write to that person's sensibilities, which is, again, a whole different animal. Man, a rapper with a ghostwriter? What the fuck? And finally, will you be reviewing Cal's hot new mixtape? I won't be able to do it justice, man. I mean, there's a reason I haven't tackled Pink Eye or Being a Dead Horse. There's stuff that is just too above my level for me to even do the slightest bit of justice to. I mean, look at the video I did on Pimp Butterfly. Practically the same thing. And that's my 400 sub Q&A. Hope you guys enjoyed it. You know all my outro stuff, because if you're watching this, you probably already seen my other videos. And, yeah, see you next time.